Well, good afternoon. It's wonderful to see you all here for this great event. It's always a lot of fun. And I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening before Yom Kippur. Interesting. I'm pleased to welcome you today to one of my favorite events at SRI, the Mimi Awards ceremony. As you may know, in years past, we combined the Mimi and the Fellowship Awards. And this year, there'll be two separate events. The Fellowship's Award will be on October 22nd to congratulate Peter Karp and Jeremy Rochelle. So I hope you'll come to that event as well. It's always a lot of fun as well. Today, we're celebrating the achievements of a very special SRI colleague, Geneva Haertel. Geneva is a true SRI champion, a person with the passion to make a difference. Through her important educational work, she has created great value for SRI, our clients, the world, and for the research community. So I'd like to say hello and congratulations to Geneva. Welcome.
Thank you.
Also like to welcome Geneva's special guests. They include family, friends, SRI alumni. It's always nice to see you back. Thank you for coming. Welcome to all of you for this great event. So let's get started. The Mimi Award was established in 1994 in honor of Mimi Stearns, who was Vice President of SRI's Health and Social Policy Division until her passing in the early 1990s. The Mimi Award is SRI's highest recognition of staff members who have fostered the personal and professional growth of their colleagues. It's truly a special award in that SRI staff members directly nominate their colleagues for the award. On a personal note, I'll tell you that my first day at SRI was a Mimi Award event. And I remember after going through the event, I leaned over to my wife and I said, what do you think about being here at SRI? And she said, these are really good people. And it's true. Anyway, Mary will tell you more about Mimi and the award in a moment. The praise from the staff who nominated Geneva was truly unprecedented, I think, really amazing and outstanding. She's a senior educational researcher in the Center for Technology and Learning, part of SRI's policy division. Geneva is keenly interested in what influences how students learn from kindergarten through high school and how to use technology in the classroom to make them more successful. Many people nominated Geneva for the award. They describe her as an expert who can negotiate the complex technical issues while also drawing out the expertise of others. She's also noted as being generous, fun, empathetic, perceptive, and courageous.
Thank you.
And it's true. Geneva's making an additional mark on her field by helping develop the next generation of researchers with the same quality and vision that characterizes her own work. And as we all know, when you look back on your career, it really is the thing you remember and you're the most proud for contributing to. Two people are here to tell us more about why Geneva is so special. First, we'll hear from Angela Heidelberger, a senior researcher in the Center for Technology and Learning, and then Louise Yarnell, a research scientist and also in CTL, will follow Angela. I'd like to thank the Mimi Award Committee for their excellent work in selecting this year's winner. They put a lot of effort behind this. They collect a lot of recommendations. They do this with great passion and commitment. I'd also like to thank the event coordinators for putting this event together and doing such a great job. And with that, I would like to now turn the podium over to Mary Wagner. Mary?
Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here. I was delighted when Jeannie Tooker asked me to take a few minutes to introduce Mimi to you. She's been gone since 1993, and most people in this room probably never had an opportunity to get to know her. Those of us who did were blessed by knowing her. Mimi came to SRI in 1972 after working for a time in the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare's Bureau of Education for the Handicapped. And the friends and colleagues whose respect she earned there would become some of our most valued clients, and they still are. Mimi and her husband Pete drove cross-country in an old Volkswagen. It was very 1972. She was responding to an invitation from Dick Marciano to join SRI's Education Research Center. It was a group of 67 people who were housed at SRI's Middlefield facility. I think that's what's Casa Mills today, down on Middlefield, just down the road. Very shortly after her arrival, Mimi began SRI's program in disability research. When the federal government passed the landmark legislation in 1975 that made it a civil right for children with disabilities to join their non-handicapped peers in America's schools, SRI, under Mimi's leadership, was awarded a contract to do the first longitudinal study on how school districts and schools were implementing that law. The results of that study helped improve the law in its reauthorization in 1983, and that reauthorization also congressionally mandated there be a study of what was happening to the kids who had grown up under the law and were now leaving high school and transitioning to adult life. That contract, too, came to SRI, and that $6 million six-year contract gave birth to what's been 2 decades of research and $60 million of research in longitudinal studies on kids with disabilities across the entire age range. It's a program that continues with us today, and so her legacy is really very present. She's not really been gone to many of us. But it isn't her research that we honor in the Mimi Award, or even the fact that she moved up the corporate ladder to become the center's assistant director in 1978, its director in 1981, executive director of the first policy group in 1989, and SRI's first woman vice president in 1991. What we honor in the Mimi Award is not the work that Mimi did, but the way she did it. Mimi was a larger-than-life person. She was close to 6 feet tall, she had wiry red hair, and when she would run down the halls of Building B, perpetually late to a meeting, her size 10 feet would literally shake the walls. If you've been in Building B, that's not that hard to do, but she would do that. She lived and worked intensely and had extraordinarily high standards for our research. She expected and inspired all those around her to hold that same passion for excellence, a passion that flowed from her deep commitment to the children who were the focus of the work. For all of us, work began to be spelled with a capital W. It became something of a calling because the kids we studied deserved our very best. That was her secret. That was her first principle. The work was always about people. People first, that was her slogan. Mimi was a fine researcher and she was a good manager, but above all, she was a people person. She knew that excellence in research and excellence in leadership came from investing in people first. Putting people first in our research means that the data we collect and the findings we report are not just facts and numbers. Behind them lie children and the families who raise them and the teachers and service providers who care for them. Keeping the people clearly in front of us drives us to want to present our findings in compelling and powerful ways so that the policies and programs for children are moved to improve because of our work. Putting people first in our client relationships means that we seek to understand the forces that shape their lives. What do they need? When do they need it? How might our work be brought to bear on the pressures they're living with? Treating clients like people first earns a reputation not just for excellence, but for responsiveness, and it's turned clients into friends and built relationships that have lasted for decades. But most fundamentally, Mimi put people first when it came to her own staff. She knew that the best research required the best of everyone, not just the project leader or the study authors, but the programmers and the data entry people and the production staff and those who stuffed the questionnaires in the envelopes. Because all contributions are important, all contributors are important. Mimi taught us that a supervisor's job is to help staff to search their hearts for the career path that would best take advantage of their unique gifts and that would most satisfy them, and then help to shape a job so it would bring that satisfaction. Supervisors don't set the course and they don't make the opportunities, but they do and they must offer support and counsel and resources to staff as they pursue their own direction and make and take advantage of opportunities. Mimi taught us that being the best we can be takes all parts of us, not just our intellects, but our imaginations and our passions. She showed us what it is to lead, not just manage. She showed us that leadership is listening, leadership is sharing authority, leadership is being welcoming to new ideas. She showed us that at its heart, leadership is loving people into being the best they can be, one person at a time. SRI will be its best when people first is the way we do business every day in every lab and center for every person. The Mimi Award has been instituted not just to honor Mimi, but to hold up as important and valuable the investment of this entire organization in its people, to encourage that investment throughout the Institute, and to recognize the investment as both effective leadership and very good business. The Mimi Award recognizes each year one person whom staff members hold up as an example to us all because of his or her outstanding performance in putting people first. Angela DeBarger will now introduce to you one of those outstanding examples, this year's Mimi Award winner. Angela?
I'm delighted that Geneva is being honored with this award. She has been an inspiration and a friend to me during the 9 years that I've been at SRI, and this award is much deserved. I'd like to share with you a bit about Geneva's background for those of you who don't know her well, and then talk about why she embodies the spirit of this award. Geneva was born in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. She lived with her mother, Eva, who was an elementary school teacher, and her father, Daniel, who was a foreman in the textile industry. She was an only child, but always had a lot of cousins around. In fact, she was the youngest of 21 cousins. I understand that this was mostly a good experience, but some of her more mischievous cousins caused her grief, like destroying her perfectly crafted sandbox creations. When Geneva was 4, her family moved to a small town outside of Cleveland, Ohio, where she went to elementary school and high school. She went to college at Kent, majoring in education with a degree to be a primary school teacher, and minoring in both psychology and public address. After graduating from college, she taught for 1 year, then returned to graduate school at Kent in educational psychology. She completed a postdoc at the University of Wisconsin with the center director of the Wisconsin Research and Development Center. Following her postdoc, Geneva moved to Chicago and worked in the Chicago Public Schools as a research and evaluation specialist. As part of her work, she visited 210 schools in 1 year, wrote an evaluation of the 10 lowest performing schools. She also conducted the evaluation of the first magnet school. Later, she worked with Herb Wahlberg at the University of Illinois at Chicago on a series of National Science Foundation and Department of Education grants. They won the first grant to conduct meta-analyses and published 3 books along with several journal articles. In 1981, Geneva headed west and got a job at the Stanford Boys Town Center. The following year, she decided to go back to the classroom to teach 8th grade and see if all this research experience helped her to be a better teacher. Being back in the classroom also helped to ground her in practice. After teaching for 1 year, she returned to research at RMC, investigating resilience in children and how they respond to and recover from traumatic experiences. Geneva tells me that this work was foundational in helping her to also understand what it means to be a good mentor and to provide support for others. In 1997, Geneva started SRI, first in Gary Bridges' group, then became part of the Center for Technology and Learning in 1998. Since then, she has led multiple research projects and made CTL truly an enjoyable place to work. So what is it about Geneva that makes her such a good mentor? For one, she cares about those of us who work with her and makes time to talk with us not just about work, but also about who we are and what's going on in our lives. She also shares her own stories, which makes the relationship more personal. Geneva is attentive to our career trajectories and takes the time to craft plans to help us achieve our goals. She is very mindful about this and takes this very seriously. Geneva is empathetic, positive, and always provides words of encouragement. It's easy to get stressed about the competing demands in the workplace, and a talk with Geneva will always make you feel better. Geneva is inclusive and considers her projects as learning opportunities for staff. At the same time, she encourages staff to pursue their own interests and helps them to do so. Finally, I know Geneva is a good mentor because whenever I'm in a new situation, I always think to myself, what would Geneva do? So I thought I'd share with you about how I see Geneva as a role model in this way. First, she's a good role model because she gets it right most of the time. What is it? Knowing how to engage other people in meaningful discussions, when to engage others in discussions, who should be involved in which efforts, and finally, she knows the content. Geneva has written 57 articles and book chapters, edited 5 books, and just at SRI been awarded over a dozen grants. Geneva shows us how to be humble about accomplishments. I never hear her brag about how many grants she has won or how much money she's brought into the center, even though it's a lot. Geneva is also a good role model for learning how to ask carefully crafted questions. Sometimes she does this just to get people to be more explicit about their thinking, and sometimes she does it as an approach for moving a project in one direction or another. She's really good at this, and it's a great strategy for working with challenging clients. I've learned from watching Geneva listen to others as well. She doesn't presume to have all of the answers. What distinguishes Geneva from other mentors is not just how good she is at mentoring, but why she does it. It's not because it's part of her job, although it does make her a more effective leader. It's not because we, her mentees, demand it of her, and I hope we don't take her for granted. It's because she's intrinsically motivated to reach out to others and help them when they are struggling and trying to grow, learn, and develop their skills. On one hand, I think it's part of Geneva's nature to help others in this way. At the same time, she always has a choice about whether or not she should be so attentive to those of us whom she mentors. She doesn't have to be so giving, and that is what is so impressive to me. Geneva is able to help so many others while also trying to tackle her own professional and personal challenges. Geneva chooses to make life better for other people, even when life is not easy for her. I don't know how I'll ever be able to fully thank Geneva for the confidence, encouragement, and support she has given me over the years. Geneva so deserves this award and all of the benefits that come with it. It's still not enough for all that she's done for those of us whom she mentors, but it's a start. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Louise Yernal, who collaborated with me to nominate Geneva for this award.
Hi, I'm so excited for you today, Geneva. The Mimi Award expresses one of the reasons that SRI International is a terrific place to work. This single award, given to professionals who have a special gift for mentoring, demonstrates that SRI as an organization values this special kind of working relationship. Because of the Mimi Award, from the first day I came to SRI 8.5 years ago, I had great hopes of developing a close mentoring relationship. In today's awardee, Geneva Haertel, I and many others in the Center for Technology and Learning have been lucky enough to benefit from the wisdom and compassion of a true mentor. Geneva fits the model set by Mimi in so many ways. She is a professional with a terrific sense of humor, a generous and compassionate heart, a passion for excellence, and an extraordinary capacity to spot and nurture talent. When Marie Bienkowski, Angela Haydel DeBarger, and I set out to nominate Geneva for the Mimi, we all sensed we had an easy task. We joked that in Geneva, we had the Uber Mimi. To tell the truth, we even felt a little sorry for the competition. To give a sense of why Geneva is so special, let me first relate a story that captures quite well everything that Geneva is not. The following is a true story, and it involves actor Harrison Ford. There was a guy who worked for Harrison Ford as a ranch hand at his Wyoming ranch for 10 years. Over the years, the guy found himself getting increasingly alienated from Ford because, as a boss, the movie star was super critical and nitpicky. The low point came one day as the ranch hand was literally shoveling a giant steaming pile of horse manure under the hot sun. As the ranch hand worked for several minutes, lifting one fragrant shovelful after the next, Harrison Ford stood nearby, observing silently and menacingly. Finally, after some time under Ford's watchful eye, the guy turned to Ford and asked him what he wanted. Ford replied, "I question your technique." The ranch hand knew it was time to look for a new job. This is not how Geneva manages folks. Working with Geneva does not feel even remotely like work. It feels like you're having fun. I don't know if this is because Geneva started her professional life as a kindergarten teacher. I don't know if it's because she has a voice like the tinkle of bells and an effervescent smile. I don't know what it is exactly, but around Geneva, you're very far from shoveling it on Harrison Ford's ranch. You're a lot closer to reliving a moment with your inner child, blowing bubbles on a summer day, and watching them float up to the blue sky. As you might expect, we had no problem finding people who genuinely wanted to write Mimi recommendation letters for Geneva. We had 14 people who eagerly wrote recommendations for her, and there were even more colleagues who offered to contribute their own letters once the word of our nomination effort spread. Further, you will not find it a surprise that the letters were consistent in their praise. In every case, you saw professionals who, when they felt self-doubt, turned to Geneva for support. She not only allayed their fears, she pushed them on to greater challenges. In every case, you saw professionals admiring her sharp research acumen. In our division, researchers consistently turned to Geneva to untangle the technical, logistical, intellectual, political, and ethical conundrums of our work. In every case, you saw professionals who felt comfortable just dropping in to chat with Geneva. She always seemed to have time to listen to their stories and share a few of her own. In every case, you saw professionals who deeply appreciated her raw street smarts, her capacity to review the office political playing field and position her mentees for success. All this would be more than enough to vouch for Geneva's qualifications for the Mimi Award, and yet, there's more. Geneva is a role model, not just in a professional sense, but in a deeply human sense. She has a positively mystifying capacity to be positive and upbeat. And she never seems more positive than when the actual reality is at its most outrageous, depressing, or merely annoying. Before I got to know her, I used to figure that Geneva just didn't notice all the stuff that bugged me. But in fact, she noticed the exact same stuff and found it just as unacceptable. But in addition to being perceptive, Geneva had developed the magic human power of laughing at even the worst situations just enough to maneuver past them and toward her goals. We're moving forward, Geneva likes to say, and indeed we are. Congratulations, my friend and my teacher. This is your day.
How would you like a build-up like that every day if I could live? Boy, this is it. Okay, so thank you to all of you, to SRI, to the Policy Division, Dennis Beatrice, to my colleagues in 654, and I think I'd like to bring up your picture. There you all are. I mean, it's been an unbelievable 11 years for me at SRI. It really has. And I appreciate every opportunity I've had to work with everyone. It's been really quite grand. So I also want to thank all the other orgs. Some of my friends are sitting right here. I can see them. It's been wonderful to work with all of you. And if I had to stand up here and name everyone that has helped me over these years, it would just be beyond what I could do. The refreshments would no longer be refreshing, okay? So I need to just say to all of you, I'm not going to mention a long string of names. I think about all of you. You're in my heart, and you truly are. And so I think what I would like to do is go right ahead and move towards a discussion about mentoring. And this is my title slide. I'm going to talk about, I'm actually going to be a little bit serious about what I think mentoring is. I made a decision that I wasn't just going to talk about all the fun and all the good times I've had, but to talk to you about what I've learned over these years about what it means to mentor. And these are really heartfelt thoughts and ideas, so I hope you'll bear with me for a moment. The first thing I want to say to you is, we all know that we're engaged in doing world-class science in this organization. And we also know that doing world-class science is not about a single scientist sitting in a lab and moving forward by himself. We know that it's a collaborative activity, that they're often large teams. These teams are across institutional boundaries, national boundaries, and so on. What's important about this is that SRI, in order to be the hallmark of research that it's been over all these years, you can't just have people who get along with partners. You just can't meet the law, the letter of the law of the contract. We have to go beyond these things. We have to try to achieve and to reach certain levels of performance that go beyond just doing what's needed. And so I started thinking what I thought the key expectations were for doing world-class science. And I started by thinking, certainly, we've all heard Kurt say many times, identifying big problems. So you have to be able to identify big problems. You have to be able to inspire individuals when you work at SRI. You have to inspire your partners, and you have to be willing to be inspired by them. So we're thinking both about leading and following. Both kinds of roles are critical. We have to be able to manage these complicated, large collaborative activities. We have to be able to deal with the budgets. We have to bring them in on time. We have to deal with them and be efficient. So that's another expectation that's held for us. We have to do cutting-edge research, critical topics, and with the very best of methods, okay? And then on top of all of that, we have to be able to recognize the contributions of others. And that is really critical, so that when we're doing all this wonderful science, we can share it. We can share the wealth and the recognition that comes with this. So when I looked at my list, I wrote it down and I looked at it. I said, 4 of the 5 expectations really involve they're social values, very interpersonal kinds of skills. I mean, certainly we talk about intellect and we talk about what's important scientifically, but all of these things depend on our ability to interact successfully with others. So, I'd like to go to the next slide. I want to talk about winning hearts and minds. Now, you may say, she must have watched too many political debates, okay? We've all been doing that over the last few months, but this is really a critical idea. This is not just the province of senators trying to be elected president. It's not just for fundraisers. It's a directive to all of us. It's a directive to understand that human beings are they're multidimensional. They have hearts, they have minds, and you, as a steward and as an individual who has to mentor, have to think about all that dimensionality. Not just their scientific acumen, but also what's in their hearts and what they can do. So I have a cartoon. Now, I have a story about my cartoon before we do the cartoon. 8 years ago, I was in Dennis Beatrice's office. I had just at that point won one of the core grants for principled assessment designs. And I got into the office, and he was talking to me, and he picked up a copy of the Harvard Business Review, and he sort of waved it about for a moment, and he said, "This is an interesting publication. You should look at this sometime." And I remember staring at it and thinking I had never picked up a copy of the Harvard Business Review. I'd seen it, but I'd never read it. A week later, I went out, and I bought a copy. And I open this, and I read, and I think, my word, there's just a ton of ideas in this magazine about what I can do to do better as a project leader, as a manager, all these things. And so I started reading the Harvard Business Review. I mean, there are case studies you ought to see. They teach you about how you can actually deal with project dilemmas better. And I found this cartoon. I think this cartoon says it all. So look at this little guy. He's in the grocery store and he's going to get himself a box of cereal. And you see the dream up above him. He's thinking, I'm going to eat this box of cereal and I'm going to get muscles and I'm going to be out there and I'm going to be physically fit and I'm going to town. And then he thinks a little more and he thinks, boy, I'll get stamina and I'll be able to go through my fast-paced life and I'll be able to keep right on going. Then he goes further. This box of cereal is even going to make him the very best of presenters. Everyone in the audience will truly love him. Okay, then he thinks of himself as king. You know, if I eat this cereal, I'll do so well, I will rise to the top. Okay, and then here comes Miss Psychologist in her white coat. And she says, you know, why did you buy the cereal? And he says, convenient size, right? So you look at this and you say to yourself, what does this tell us about this thing called mentoring? Well, what it tells us is that all those bubbles, those are aspirations, those are the dreams within our hearts. Those are the things that really give us the energy to make it go. And you, as a steward, as a mentor, as a project leader, whatever you are, have to be attuned to that reality. You have to be thinking about that. Okay, we'll go next. So I want to talk to you for 1 minute about intense learning environments, intense versus powerful environments. So we know that people they're multidimensional. They have hearts, they have minds. And you've got some of the very best people to work with in this company. Okay, and what does it mean to say there's an intense learning environment? You know, organizations are learning environments in the same way that schools are, that after-school programs are, all these things. All these organizations that, like the one we work in, are learning environments. So an intense learning environment is one. Then this is coming from a colleague of mine named Ernie Pasquarella at the University of Iowa. And Ernie has been studying environments, learning environments for a long time. And he tells us that their intense learning environments are fast-paced, they're demanding, and they're formative. And you know, I want you to stop and think about the word formative. What does it mean to say that an environment is formative? It means that it has the capacity to literally change how you do things. Not just what you know about things, but change your character, change who you are as a result of being in that organization. So an intense learning environment is one where this kind of formative activity occurs. You're expected to have a wide range of skills, and you're expected to deal with competing priorities. Now that's what an intense environment is. I'm not saying those practices are good, those are characteristics of the environment, okay? So let's look at some examples. I mean, I won't read through them, you'll recognize them. You know that if you go to Marine boot camp, you're in an intense learning environment, right? You know that if you talk to people who have been inducted into the police or fire forces, they too have an intense experience. And in fact, if you ever want to read a sociology about this type of thing, there's a famous one called Boys in Blue, which talks about how people come into organizations and the experience they have becoming part of that organization. Residencies in hospitals, the training of clergy, partnerships in law firms, getting tenure at a major university, all these things are intense. Now, we're not saying these are the best of environments. I'm just telling you they're intense. And when people come in, they will change as a result of that experience. So, let us go to the next slide. SRI certainly is intense, but it also could be characterized as powerful. What makes it powerful? What makes it powerful is that this organization has a whole group of different kinds of supports in place to support individuals in their development. And that's what's important for everyone here to realize. That's what makes this organization, in some ways, I think, quite different. There are truly opportunities here to do things that you may not encounter in some of the other premier research houses. I really believe that. And I believe that we have to be good about how we steward the individuals that we work with on that path. So, here's what happens when a new member of an organization that is an intense learning environment, when they come in to that environment, what they experience. So they have to learn how to identify the problems that the organization thinks are important, okay? They have to reevaluate their own strengths and weaknesses. And we know what that is. That's called social comparison. For all the psychologists in the room, that's what that is. When you come to a place like SRI, you encounter very, very expert individuals. And you ask yourself, can I do this evaluation design as well as that person? Can I design an assessment as well as Pat Amon? Can I do as well as Patty Shank when I have to try to do some programming? This is what it means to socially compare and to be thinking about where you stand. So you're reevaluating yourself. You're extending your skill sets. You're going to do things in this organization that you may have heard about in graduate school, that you may have heard about in your training, but you are going to have the opportunity here to put them into play and to do them. And not just one or two things. You're going to have an opportunity to learn and do many new things. We get better interpersonal skills. We go beyond the notion of just being able to interact with our own project team, with the local group. You're talking to people who are, national experts in things. You're even doing international experiences. So all these are critical opportunities that come here and that are going to take place when you join this organization. And I think the next to the last one is really an important idea. It's the idea that members of the project team are regarded as the most important resource. So now we're going to come to the idea that human capital trumps all. What's important? It's not just, the amount of money, it's not the facilities, it's not all of that. It's the idea that these people sitting around the table with you are going to make the difference in terms of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do new world-class science, okay? And we learn how to commit to shared goals. So, when you look around you, you have people who have strong interests, they want to do things, they want to contribute. One of the things they're going to learn is how to sort of bring that together with others, commit to these shared goals, and go forward. Louise's term, okay? So, these three terms. Now, if you learn nothing more from this little thing I'm doing here, the idea of the difference between management, championship, and mentoring. These are important differences. Think about them. I tell you, go home tonight. I'm not kidding you. Think about what's different among these things. So management is how you're going to increase your productivity and your efficiency in your business practices. You may be to meet the bottom line, to do what it is to make the business work well. Championship is like leadership. This is about persuasion. This is how we persuade individuals, to follow, to be able to get, some ideas and have a mission. So championship and leadership have a particular role. And then there's mentoring. And mentoring is the most personal of all. It's the one that really counts for the one-to-one kind of interaction that goes on. And so when I think about mentoring, I say mentoring is about the development of a strong work-related identity. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not doing counseling. I'm not trying to do things that are broad and I have all kinds of problems coming in. I am trying to help an individual work toward a particular work-related goal. Boundaries are important for me. I want to have a shared goal that I'm working towards, okay? Now, listening and talking over and over and over again. I mean, this really is the heart of what it means to mentor. You can't use the Canadian goose model. I'll tell you what that is. So, some people think that, you're a mentor, you're flying over one of these migratory flyways, you're the goose, you're up here, 50,000 feet in the air. And every now and again you see one of your mentees down below and you sort of shout an idea down. How are you doing on goal 3 for your performance review? As I'm on my way to the printer, and I'm saying to you, give it up. No Canadian goose model. It has to be upfront and personal. That's what mentoring is about. It's upfront and personal. You have to take the time with individuals and talk with them about these important and critical things in their life, their dreams, their aspirations, who they want to be. Okay? Vision. Two aspects to vision. There's the vision that comes with me trying to find out what is it that Kate wants to do, or what is it that Angela wants to do. What does Amy aspire to? What does Tom aspire to? You're listening and you're trying to get an idea about what they hold for themselves as an important goal. Now, there's another side to vision, and that is when I look over and I realize that I'm dealing with Phil on innovation, and Phil has a really good idea about innovation. How do we go ahead and support Phil so that that goes even further? How do we bring those opportunities out into the fore? That's the sort of diamond in the rough idea. Okay, we see a good idea, we see an individual who's working towards something important, and you want to bring it forward. So vision has two aspects, and they're critical in the mentoring activity. And then we have the planting seeds. So, I'm a person who likes farmers. I think farmers are pretty clever. And all farmers know that you don't get a crop if you don't plant seeds, right? And your job is to plant seeds. Now, this little Venn diagram is the result of a mentoring exchange with our own CEO, Kurt. So he sat with me and we talked about what it meant to actually work and see identities changing. So you have sort of the current identity, and you have a new identity, and you're looking for this intersection, this sort of sweet spot, where we in fact can actually do and sprinkle some seeds, create some imagination so an individual will get an idea and be able to go forward. So you have to plant the seeds, and I really mean you have to say the words. When you mentor, you have to say the words. It can't just be, next year you'll be doing better. You have to say, next year, Nikki, you're going to submit a proposal and it's going to be funded by Reese and you're going to have whatever. You have to say the words. You have to make it concrete. So, my last one, proactive intention. Barbara actually helped me get the idea of intention into this particular slide. But here's my story. Jeremy Rochelle, who is my supervisor, 3 years ago came to me and said, you're going to have a new kind of goal in your performance review. Your goal is going to be that you have to have a plan for each of your 6 supervisees. You have to know what the next big thing for them is going to be. And I remember myself sitting in the office looking at him and thinking, what's this? This is something different. This is I'm not a peer-reviewed article. It's not a proposal. I have to have a plan about people. Okay. So I thought, well, I have to make this happen. So I developed a discipline. I have a discipline for how to do this. Now, I will tell you, it is simple, and it is not a very impressive discipline, but it works. And here's what it is. Okay. This is my calendar. Okay. Every Monday, the calendar opens. I see the week laid out. I put a name in the left-hand upper corner. That name may be Louise. The name may be Angela. It may be Kate. It just depends. I put the name, and that week I hold myself to doing and making sure that I interact a certain amount with that individual, that I at least have 2 conversations with them, that I have an opportunity to find out about the kinds of things that they're interested in and they're doing. And so that is why it's not just intention, it's proactive intention. It's an intent, and then I have to act on it, okay? And I do this week after week, and it is a discipline. And as a result of doing it, when I get to the performance reviews for all my supervisees at the end of a year, I know something about what they're doing. I have some idea about their goals, what they would like to achieve. And I think that's the most important thing. I mean, you have to have that contact. You have to have it. So then, finally, Kurt said you have to have a My Vision slide. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have a My Vision slide. And I thought, one has to follow sometimes, right? So I'm thinking, this is such an opportunity. I can influence what happens in this company about mentoring. What an opportunity. So I thought, what would I like to see that be? Well, I would like to see performance reviews actually evolve in such a way that individuals really can in some sense, have a guarantee that they're understood. Their goals and their hopes for themselves are understood and reflected. And that we get our supervisors and our mentors into sort of close union around some important ideas. Okay, I would like to really have all the mentees believe that there's a shared goal we're working on. You know, we're working on a particular proposal to have that funded. We're working on a peer-reviewed article. We're working on a new design for a research project. Whatever it is, I'd like it to be a shared work-related goal. And I would like them to believe that that mentor is really in there with them. That it's not just them saying it and then the mentor disappears. It's not the Canadian Goose model. You got to be closer than that, upfront and personal. And then the issue of advocating. Okay, I think that the easiest thing in the world, as a result of spending a lot of time with people and talking, is being able to advocate intelligently for them. You know, when I go to a leadership meeting with Barbara and Jeremy, if I've had enough time with Louise and Angela, I have an idea about what they need, what kind of support might be useful and helpful, and I can do it. And I can advocate not only at the level of the org, but, you know, I might be able to even say something that would influence the policy division. I don't know. But I know what is important, what is needed, what might be helpful, and I can have an intelligent exchange around that. And then finally, it would be great if there was just a little more money to develop to develop all these mentoring skills. So that is sort of my appeal in the end. But I've tried to share with you what I think about when I mentor, and I did it this way in part because I want all of you to know that I really do. I have very deep interest with many of the people I work with personally, but there really is a framework that I'm thinking about that's guiding me as I'm trying to do these things. So again, thank you for this wonderful award. Thank you for this opportunity, and let us go forward. Oh, you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we have a certificate and we have a mini pin.
Thank you. I
for you.
appreciate this. This is
So-
wonderful. Thank you very much.
So we'd like to thank you again for all your great contributions. And we have some
Oh,
flowers.
all right. Thank you, Angela. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, very much. Please come up and have some refreshments with us. This is wonderful. It's wonderful to be with all of you here. Thank you. Okay.
So I'd like to thank our presenters, Mary, Louise, Angela. Didn't they do a great job? And what I loved about what Geneva did today was, you know, her theme is hearts and minds. And it wasn't enough just to give us kind of a hearts talk today. She gave us a minds talk. She couldn't stop mentoring everybody in the room.
Can I say? I know.
What a beautiful job. So let's all go and thank Geneva for all her wonderful contributions and for changing our lives. Please, thank you.